Very, very well. I'm overwhelmed. Doing the show together.
Oh yeah, I think this should be our second time this year.
When was when was our first?
The first
New
time.
Year.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing. Oh yeah, when we are crossing the year together. Amazing. Anyway, it's good to actually have you on a different platform again.
Yeah, and it's also good to be on this particular platform, especially that doing something different from what people would say they know me for. Yeah, so it's always awesome, and it's a pleasure also to be on this platform.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, so what are we looking at today?
Okay, so today we are looking at, in your introduction, you mentioned to say today is the 25th of May, which is African Freedom Day. So today on the program, our topic, we are looking at a reflection on African Freedom Day. What is our reflection towards this day? Are we really free? Are we enjoying our freedom in this particular country? We are talking about different types of freedoms. Of course, there's media freedom, talking about the freedom of movement, freedom of assembly. So are we really, or have we enjoyed our freedom in this particular country? So we are looking at a reflection of freedom. Well, so far, wouldn't say that there's been quite a lot to be admired when it comes to freedom in our country, because there's been a whole lot of different happenings, talking about the media being suppressed, talking about certain individuals or people also being restricted in terms of their freedom of movements, their freedom of expression, and also just their freedom or maybe their human rights being infringed. So of late there's been quite a whole lot of things happening, and it would be so good and so nice to have our viewers telling us, obviously, or giving us a scale of 1 to 10, how do they rate our freedom in this particular country so far, from the time obviously that they reached that particular age where they now got to know about their human rights and also about certain freedoms.
Amazing.
So today's theme, or today's celebration for African Freedom Day, it's under the theme to say the year of refugees, returnees, and internally displaced persons towards durable solutions to forced displacement in Africa. Yeah, this is what today is going to be celebrated about, talking about the refugees, returnees, and also the internally displaced persons towards the durable solutions to forced displacement in Africa. And we hope that this particular theme will not just be a mere talk or just a theme which we look at it, probably talk about it, and then it ends there. Let's hope that solutions or people are going to reflect on it, look into it deeply, and put it into action, so that it's not just talking but also actions get to follow.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's something that is awesome. And after news came out yesterday that this is what the president has done, many people in the media gurus, they were trying to look at the list, hoping to see that Derek Singela was one of the people who was pardoned by the president, because of late they have been cause for the president to take a look into his plight and probably pardon him, because one, he is a first offender, and also looking at how hard this government says that they want to fight the issue of media suppression. So many people were trying to look at the list and see if Singela was part of the people who were pardoned. All right, so as we are waiting for the cause, let me just go through a background of African Freedom Day, what it is all about and when it started. So here it goes, like on the 15th of April 1958, at a time when most of Africa was under colonial rule, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, the Prime Minister of the newly independent state of Ghana, convened and hosted the first ever Congress of Independent African African states. The gathering also showcased the progress of liberation movements on the African continent, in addition to symbolizing the determination of the people of Africa to free themselves from foreign domination and exploitation. It is at this conference that the concept of commemorating an African Freedom Day was born. The day was mooted in order to mark each year the onward progress of the liberation movement and to symbolize the determination of the people of Africa to free themselves from foreign domination and exploitation. A few years later, on the 25th May 1963, Empire Haile Selassie of Ethiopia, a country that has never been colonized, hosted in Addis Ababa the representatives of 30 African nations. By then, more than 2/3 of the continent had achieved independence, mostly from imperial European states. It is at this meeting that the Organization of African Unity, which is OAU, was formed with the initial objective of galvanizing and decolonization of Angola, Mozambique, South Africa, and Southern Rhodesia, which is now Zimbabwe. So the OAU pledged to support the liberation of efforts of freedom fighters in their respective colonies and remove military access to colonial nations. Zambia, after attaining independence from Britain in 1964 under the leadership of Dr. Kenneth Kaunda, played a pivotal role in the liberation of neighbors such as Zimbabwe, Angola, and Mozambique, and our people also paid the ultimate price with their lives to liberate our brothers and sisters in South Africa from the shackles of apartheid. And then fast forwarding it to 2002, our nation, during the tenure of the second president, Dr. Frederick Jacob Titus Chiluba, hosted an OAU summit, and it was at this meeting that the continental body was transformed from OAU to African Union, which is AU. And then in spite of the changed appellation of the continental body, African Freedom Day or Africa Day still continues to be widely celebrated on 25th May by Africans across the globe, in the motherland and in Zambia by everybody. And of course, we are back on this wonderful and lovely show called Wake Up Zambia. And of course, on this particular platform, on this particular segment, I'm being joined by a face that most people know, or a whole lot of you know, because it is a consistent face, and we always have this person right here in the studio. But for the sake of those of you that are watching us for the very first time, and you might not know who I am talking about, of course, in the studio and right now, I have Mr. Joe Kasaka, and he's going to introduce himself just a little bit before we get into the gist of the program. Mr. Kasaka, welcome to Wake Up Zambia.
Thank you, and good morning, viewers out there.
All right, so for people that are watching for the first time, they would really love to know who Mr. Joe Kasaka is and what he represents.
Thank you very much. Mr. Joe Kasaka is a teacher, a lawyer, and apparently is Director for Public Relations and International Affairs at Zambia National Union of Teachers. Yeah.
All right, so you've heard it for yourself. He's coming from ZANUT, Zambia National Union of Teachers, and of course, when he comes on the show, we mostly do talk about issues that affect the teachers, or issues pertaining to what ZANUT is all about and what they really hope to see, and also advocate for that which is right. And of course, to get into our topic of discussion, or what we're talking about, on Labor Day this year, President Lungu had indicated that civil servants were going to be receiving their salaries on time, and or they will no longer be delayed. But looking at today is the 25th of May, and of course we would really love to know, has the president really, or his assurance, has he really honored that assurance to say civil servants' salaries will no longer be delayed?
What I can say apparently is that this is the first time that we have We have seen his promise coming to fruition because the salaries have just come right on time.
Okay.
And we are waiting to see how this, the promise that was made, how it will continue coming out. Because when the president indicated salaries will no longer be delayed, so the test will not only be 1 month, but the test has we have to see over a period of time whether that promise will still hold. Because previously we have been hearing statements, not from the president, even from maybe other stakeholders, from the Minister of Finance and so on, who have been indicating that teacher salaries or civil servant salaries will always be paid on time. But we have seen a situation where at times the salaries are not coming on time. So from the time the president stated, we are just banking on his word to see whether there will be consistency in terms of payment of salaries in good time. Yeah. So this time around, our teachers got paid somewhere around Wednesday this week. And since they got paid around that time, and there was a lot of excitement because in the past, they've been seeing a situation whereby when you reach 23rd, 24th, still there is no, like politicians used to say, no light at the end of the tunnel. But otherwise, this time around, we've seen a situation where almost that time, the salaries were there and everybody was excited about it. And we hope to see that maybe this trend will continue for the next months to come in future.
Okay,
yeah.
Awesome. And then also this year we had the Minister of Education making mention or making a pronouncement to say that school fees have to be reduced from these grant-aided schools. But of late, I don't think we have seen that being done. Why are these schools hesitant of reducing the fees?
You know, the grant-aided schools, we used to call them mission schools in those days. These are schools which are run by maybe the churches. So when these churches are running these schools, most of the things that are in these schools, they buy using their own monies as churches. So when you go to their schools, if you look at most of the grant-aided schools, they look very nice. In some of the schools that we had gone, we're even seeing they had even put ceramic tiles in classrooms for pupils. So you can see that they spend quite a lot to ensure that their standards are not very low. So when the minister announced the reduction in government schools, and in fact all the schools, the mission schools were hesitant. They said, we're not going to reduce because we maintain these schools at higher cost. And now if we reduce, it means we're going to compromise on the standard. So that was the argument. And besides that, they've got also other workers, other teachers that they've employed on their own to supplement the teachers that have been sent to those schools by government. So they were thinking if they are to go much down, it means they will not find sufficient monies to be paying the teachers that they employ. And besides that, they also employ a lot of people, like caretakers, they employ like security guards to ensure that their properties are well looked after. And then there are also those garden boys and so on. There are quite a number of people that they employ. So they were looking at the reduction. If the fees were to go down, were they going to be sustainable and all those things? So those were the issues they were looking at. But again, the PS persuaded them to say they need to just come down so that they are at the same footing with the government schools. And apparently what has happened is that they had a meeting with the PS, and now they've agreed in principle, all of them, that they need to bring these fees down. But what is not coming out clear is that, because you see, there are some parents that pay upfront. They would pay maybe for 2-3 terms, they've already paid for the school fees. Now, if they paid at that higher level, and now there is a pronouncement that beginning second term, the fees have to go down. So what becomes of the amounts of money which these people had already paid at that higher rate? Because when you pay those monies into the school, in most of the schools, those monies don't even sit in the account. They will quickly be translated into textbooks. They'll be translated into repair of desks or buying of desks, buying of requisites that the that the children may use at the end of the day. So if we say beginning second term, it means they've got this issue where some parents will be demanding to say, we overpaid, can you give us the change? And if they've already used the money, it means we bring now big problems to these schools. But however, in a nutshell, what I can say is that even grant-aided schools now, they've compromised and they've agreed that the fees be reduced just as they are in government schools. I think it's a plus to the parents that were finding difficulties in paying these monies to those schools. It's a plus for them because it will be easier now to pay school fees. Now, where the problem is whether they will try to maintain the standards which they used to maintain. So that's where the difficulty is. Okay. But however, like the minister pointed out in his statement, he was saying we'll be carrying out an evaluation of the whole activity by the close of second term. So we're optimistic that come August, we'll be sitting down to look at the measures that we had put into the education sector. How workable are they? You know, there have been so many measures that were put in the education sector. So there were issues to do with the same reduced fees. You know, there were issues to do with parents that cannot afford. They can pay in what? In kind. They can take a bag of maize, they can take a bag of rice, they can take a bag of beans, they can take a bag of soybeans, they can take cassava, if those are the only things they have asked for paying for school fees. And our colleagues in Wapula, maybe they can even take fish because there's too much fish in Wapula. So I don't know. So those were the issues that were being talked about. So those were the changes, and also we saw the change in terms of the way primary schools are supposed to be teaching. Specialization. It has its own challenges, and these things we have to review them by the close of second term. So I'm looking at August. I think August there will be a lot of things to look at, to evaluate and see whether they are working. We are also going to issue a statement as a union concerning our findings over these changes that have taken place. For now, we are just in a period of observation, and then after observing, we are going to conclude after 3 months, which is August.
Okay.
So yeah, that's what I can say concerning the issue that you asked over grant-aided schools that are refusing to reduce the fees. Apparently they were reduced.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then recently we heard of Mpulungu being hit with cholera, or suspects of cholera breaking out in Mpulungu, which led to the closure of schools in Mpulungu. And then we are looking at this as this is a second term heading into the third term, where we have students or pupils that are in exam classes. How will this impact on the pupils that are in exam classes? Or let me say, will these pupils be ready for the exams when they come in third term?
You're right. We are very much in a very critical situation in terms of Mpulungu pupils. And you know, the second term, that's when we try to put bits and pieces together and then begin to assess whether our children are ready for the final exam or not. And apparently when the second term begins, there are a number of activities that have been lined up for teachers to do in order, because this is the full term that you expect our children to learn. When it comes to the third term, you know, exams are beginning in October. November, our children are writing the exam. So it means they've only about a month or so to learn in the third term. So in the second term, that's when we try to do all the catch-ups and so on. So for Mpulungu, what I feel is that the cholera situation is something that I can say is something that is beyond the Ministry of Education. So you can't impose the children to say there's this cholera thing, let's forget about it, let's go and learn. You know, cholera comes so much and people get it so much when they are grouped together. And usually in school we group the children together, and they're coming from different places, and they could be coming from places where there's cholera. And when they come into the school environment, you know, it's a disease that you get by it's a waterborne disease actually, but sometimes by handshake, because our hands are wet, you seem to you can get cholera. So that's why we're trying to avoid by all means that our children don't go to those schools, because they will be endangered with cholera. And it's one disease, when you get it in the morning, within 24 hours you can pass on. So that's why we are saying with cholera, we don't even take chances. It's something that is beyond us. But in terms of learning for our children, for sure, they are going to lag. Because in the second term, like this time around, children are doing their practical exams. They are supposed to be assessed at least on they're supposed to do 3 projects, either in science, biology, and so on. So they're supposed to be assessed on those. But now, this is the time. Other schools, in fact, are doing assessments this time. So we're expecting that this time they could also be doing what their colleagues are doing elsewhere. But with them is something which is not very pleasant. They're quite behind. And then in the second term, we have what we call mock exam. So children are supposed to learn in order for them to come and do well in mock exam. Mock exam, we do it so that we see whether our children are ready. Now, if they are going to miss on certain topics, already we're talking about 2 weeks have gone, and we don't know whether next week the schools will open in Mpulungu. We don't know, because it's the health people that need to declare Mpulungu cholera free. Yeah, if it still has cholera, it means there will be issues. Schools will not they will not reopen. So that's why I'm saying, for our children that are in Mpulungu, they should not relax. Let them lay their hands on what they can lay upon to study. In their homes, let them study in their homes wherever they are. Because if they are going to wait that we'll begin studies when schools reopen, they will have a rude shock. Because the exam they are going to write will be uniform exam for everybody in this country. And they will not be exempted. So they have to write, they have to answer the questions which other people that are learning are going to answer. So for our children, our pupils in Mpulungu, the only advice is that this time that schools are not operational there, it's not an opportunity for them to do other things, but it's time for them to be busy. The parents in Mpulungu, they need to encourage their children to be studying at home and not to allow them to be just playing about, especially those that are in the examination classes. Yeah, we pity them so much, because we would want them to compete and pass just like any other child elsewhere. Yeah, so we want them to pass these exams, so they need to read. The children need to read. For our teachers in Mpulungu, I also pity them, because when schools reopen, they would want to cruise, so that pupils can catch up. But again, the cruising, you may be cruising alone and only leaving the children behind, because children will not master the concepts. So what I know is that there will be great work when the schools reopen. Our teachers are going to have a lot of work, because they have to ensure that they put things together, especially for the children that are in the examination classes. To ensure that they pass, they need to put these things together. So Mpulungu is one district that we are feeling pit of concerning the cholera outbreak in terms of education. Yeah, but however, we still have confidence. We have very, very good teachers in Mpulungu, and apparently they will be able to catch up, and the pupils will do well. I'm sure they will do well, some of them. So it's just an encouragement to them that they need actually to study hard to ensure that they pass.
All right, thank you, Mr. Kasaka. But let me try to divert you from the education sector to what we are talking about today, it being African Freedom Day, and everybody is celebrating it. We are talking about freedom, a reflection on our freedom as human beings, as Zambians. How do you look personally? How do you look at your freedom? How would you rate it, first of all? How would you rate it on a scale of 1 to 10? And then aside from that, do you feel that you are really enjoying your freedom as a citizen?
Well, as a citizen, okay. As a citizen, our freedom will be gauged from a situation where we look at the Bill of Rights. Because we are enjoying this freedom because it's provided for in the Bill of Rights. And then we have also the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. Yeah. So that's where most of our freedom is coming from. For instance, there are these freedoms that we have. Freedom of movement, right from not being tortured, freedom of expression, right to life, all those things. So when I look at all these things, for instance, if I say right to life, can anybody just come here and say I'm killing you and accuse me? No. So I'm enjoying that right. Freedom of movement. Can I move from here to Kitwe today? If I say I want to go to Kitwe, is somebody going to tell me, no, you shouldn't go there? I'm able to go. Not so. So, for instance, the issues of torture. Let's look at maybe the people that are even incarcerated. Because those, if you are incarcerated, it means there's one critical freedom that has been taken away from you. It's the freedom of movement. It has, but freedom of speech, you have it. You can talk anything in prison. Not so. Yeah. You have also the right not to be tortured in prison. No one can torture you, even if they want to extract information from you. If somebody does that, we've seen people that have been tortured in police cells, and those police who have done that have been taken to justice. Right now, we have seen a situation where even a lawyer, you heard of a case of a certain lawyer that shot a security guard. You heard of that case?
Yes.
Yes. So no one can take away the life of another person. So what I mean is that in terms of rating the freedom that we are enjoying, to me I can say we're enjoying almost 9 out of 10.
Okay.
9, absolute. In fact, you know, freedom depends from one person, the way you perceive it yourself.
Yes.
Yeah. Your freedom actually ends where my freedom starts from.
Yes.
Yeah. So we are enjoying about 9 out of 10. So to say, because you can't enjoy it absolutely. There are certain things that you need to be restricted from doing, because if you do them, they will work to the detriment of society.
Yes.
So you have to be restricted. There are certain things that you would want to do, but they're out of your freedom. You can't do them. But strictly speaking, we are enjoying almost all the freedoms that have been provided for in there. But it's only the politicians, maybe, our colleagues in the political arena are the only ones that feel part of their freedom is restricted. Especially right to assemble. Yeah. So where if they want to assemble somewhere for their political party, they are told, no, you need to go and get permit from the police. Yeah, I was watching the other day on Prime TV News. One of the politicians went to Eastern Province. He was trying to gather the people so that he could have a rally. I watched the police. He said, no, you're not going to hold it because you don't have this, you don't have that. We watched that, and they can come out and say, us, we are not enjoying that freedom because we have been denied to assemble. As to freedom of speech, that's why we were able to hear them, because they even went to the media and they spoke. So to me, what I feel is that we are enjoying almost every freedom. As provided in the Bill
of Rights. All right, and then lastly, today's celebration is themed under refugees and returnees being able to be embraced or given a place to look at it, that there is no displacement in Africa. How do you look at this theme? Should it be something that's just spoken and left out, or maybe it needs to really be acted on?
When you look at the refugees, these are the most inconvenienced people. You know, the refugees in Africa mainly, some of them are internally displaced because of maybe in the area where they are staying. There could be some rebels and so on. So they will run away from this part and go and settle somewhere there. Then we have also refugees that have run away from other countries, and they've come to countries like Zambia and so on for refuge, because in their countries there is war. There could be civil war, and we've got a good number of them. Some of them in Zambia here we have some. You remember we used to have Maheba refugee camp. We used to have another one in Eastern Province. We used to have also the refugee centers in Wapula Province. Those that were running away from Congo, those that ran away from the wars in Angola, those that ran away from the wars in Mozambique, and those that were running away from Congo. Apparently for Congo, it was even recent. We had some also in Wapula, and I'm sure some are still there who are running away. So when these people come, they are human beings. And when they come into countries for refuge, like they come to Zambia, they are seeking refuge in Zambia, we need to accommodate them because they are human beings just like any other human being. Even you know, every person, me I say at times to say, every person is a potential refugee. Yeah, because anything can happen in this country. What will happen? You run away and you go to another. So if we are to be mistreating refugees, one day you also run away from your own country and then you go somewhere else. What will happen of you? So if people are to look down upon you, that to mistreat you and all those things just because you are a refugee, then it becomes something else. In other countries, what they've done is that the refugees have even been given work permits. They're able to work. They are able to do the farming. They contribute, in fact, to the economic development of certain countries. Refugees, some of them are very hardworking. I remember at some point in Solwezi, Maheba camp, the refugees were cultivating a lot. When you go to Maheba, you would eat a lot of sugar cane. They used to have a lot of big portions of land where they were cultivating maize and so on. So they were contributing to the GDP of this country. So what I think is that the theme for this year's commemoration, which is looking at refugees, I think it's a good theme which tries to give us or it reminds us, or it makes us to be conscious about the refugees, and that refugees are human beings just like the way we are. So when whether they are internally displaced or they are people that are running away from other societies into our society, we need just to keep them properly. They are human beings. We need to, if there is a way and we see that this refugee has a skill and he can contribute to Zambia's economy, why not use them? Because we are now living in a global world. So a profession in Zambia is a profession in another country. So if this refugee has run away as a doctor and he has the papers, we should not restrict him to say no, he cannot practice in Zambia. If he has the papers and we have seen that yes, this person is a qualified doctor, why not, if he's looking for instance for a job, why not give him a job? So this is why we are saying internally displaced people and the refugees that are running away from civil strife from their own countries into this country, they need to be treated at the same footing with the citizens of that country.
Mr. Kasaka, I would love to thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
All right. So we've been talking to Mr. Kasaka, who was highlighting a few things in the education sector, and let's hope that you've gotten at least one or two things and be able, you have been educated on a few things that you didn't know. Let's go on a very short break, and then when we come back, my colleague Louisia joins me as we come to wrap up the show.